Hello everyone! I hope you're ready for another adventure, because today, Wayne continues reading The Ancient World, Ancient Aztecs. As we go through this amazing story and read these amazing adventures, all you have to do is press the CC button in your YouTube link in order to follow along with the words. Now I think Madame Mal will be perfect to join us for today's adventure. Madame Mal is here. Let's jump in. The Ancient Aztecs. A wandering tribe builds an empire. Starting in the 12th century, tribes in present-day northern Mexico began to migrate south. Perhaps changes in climate made it hard for them to hunt or raise crops in their traditional lands. No one knows for sure, but whatever drove them to seek a new home, these people eventually reached the Valley of Mexico. The last of these tribes still alive was the Mexica. The Mexica claimed that their homeland was an island in the lake called Aztlan, meaning the place of the white heron. Aztlan was the source of the word Aztec, by which the world knows these people today. Leading the Mexica on their search for a new home was the warrior chief named Huitzilopochtli. After his death, he became a god, and he continued to speak to the Mexica through their priests. The people sometimes stayed in one location for up to 20 years, farming and erecting buildings. But the priests told the people that the god had a plan for them. Huitzilopochtli was leading them to a spot where they would build the seat for their next empire, Tenochtitlan, settling in the Valley of Mexico. Historians today consider the story of Huitzilopochtli a myth, but no one disputes that the Mexica were wandering people who settled in the Valley of Mexico. They were latecomers to Mesoamerica, arriving sometime between 1250 and 13 CE. The Mexica, in the earlier migrants from the north, found some residents who had adopted the urban culture of the great civilizations of the past. These earlier peoples included the unknown builders of Teotihuacan in the Toltecs. Teotihuacan was home to about 100,000 people at the peak of its power, around 500 CE, making it one of the largest cities in the world. To the Aztecs, Teotihuacan was important because they believed their gods had met there to create the fifth sun, the current period of life on Earth. The name for their city came from the Nahuatl words meaning place of the gods. Aztecs prized the art they found in the ruins of Teotihuacan. The Toltecs had been the last of the powerful Mesoamericans before the rise of the Aztecs. Before 1150, Toltec noble families moved further south into the Valley of Mexico. The wandering tribes had settled in the valley saw the powerful state of the Toltecs had once ruled. New leaders from the migrating tribes tried to marry into Toltec families so they could claim a tie to the Toltec civilization. One of the ruling families with such a tie to the Toltecs controlled the town of Culhuacan. That place would play an important role in Mexica history. Once the Valley of Mexico, the Mexica struggled to acquire land because the earlier migrants were powerful and drove them away. The people of Culhuacan defeated the Mexica at one battle, forcing the group to move on. Some Mexica leaders begged the rulers of Culhuacan to have pity on them. The rulers agreed to let the Mexica settle on marshy land at a place called Tizapa. The waters were filled with snakes and not a welcoming spot for the Mexica. Grateful for land, however, they settled in Tizapa and tried to build a new home. To get food, the Mexica learned to hunt the snakes and other reptiles living in the marshes. The settlers also farmed. The Mexica developed close ties with the people of Culhuacan, helping them fight their enemies. This connection with Culhuacan made the Mexica believe their ties to the Toltecs were growing. They tried to make it grow stronger by having a princess from Culhuacan become their queen and the wife of the god Huitzilopochtli. Becoming his wife, however, meant that she had to be sacrificed to the gods. When the Culhuacans learned of their princess's death, they attacked the Mexica and drove them from Tizapan. Wandering again, in 1325, the Mexica settled on an island named Lake Texcoco, the founding of Tenochtitlan. Once more, Huitzilopochtli would lead the Mexica to a new home. The priest said that on the island, the Mexica would see an eagle sitting on a nopal or prickling cactus pear that grew out of a rock. Sure enough, the Mexica saw the eagle on the cactus and they built a temple to honor Huitzilopochtli. That spot became the center of their new home, the city of Tenochtitlan. In the Aztec language of Nahuatl, the name means among the stone cactus fruit. The location was not perfect. The Mexica struggled at first to grow crops and find supplies to build homes, but they were able to catch fish and hunt birds and animals that lived along the water. This provided enough food for themselves and enough to sell at markets in nearby towns. The Mexica built a second city on the island, which they called Tlatelolco. It became the site of another market, which developed into the largest in the Valley of Mexico. The people of the two cities also built special gardens called champalas, which produced corn, squash, and other crops. The Tanapecs, one of the earlier migrating tribes from the north, controlled the area around the Mexica's new home. The Tanapecs required the Mexica to supply warriors for their battles amongst other tribes. Under Tizozomoc, their ruler, the Tanapecs extended their control across large parts of the Mexico Valley. To reward the Mexica for their military service, Tizozomoc let them fight on their own and collect tribute from their town they defeated. This new wealth helped strengthen the Mexica. New king, new allies. In about 1375, the Mexica acquired their own leader. The honor went to Acamale Pichli, the son of the leading Mexica and a Cualacán princess. Despite the past conflict with the Cualacans, the two groups had once again forged friendly relations. Over the next few decades, the Mexica strengthened their ties to the royalty of the Cuauhtémoc and Azcapotzalco, the capital of the Tampanec. For example, Chimalpopoco, the third Mexican king, was the grandson of Tizomomoc. Their royal marriage, the Mexica were also allied with Texcoco, a city to the east of the lake with the same name. Like the Mexica, the people of Texcoco were part of the small but growing state under the Timpanok control. The Timpanocks were thrown into confusion with the death of Tizomomoc in 1426. Two of his sons struggled to control the throne. Meanwhile, the new Mexica leader, Izahualco, organized a rebellion against the Tampanecs. He convinced the cities of Texcoco and Tlacopan to become allies in a battle against the new Tampanec king. They defeated the Tampanecs, and in 1428 the three cities created the Triple Alliance. This was another name for the Aztec Empire that was soon to emerge. The leaders of the three cities agreed that Tenochtitlan and Texcoco would each get 40% of whatever tributes the alliance won throughout the conquest. The Tlacopan would get the rest. The Triple Alliance decided that the new empire would do whatever was necessary to survive and grow. There would be battles, of course, but the Aztecs would seek to build ties through royal marriage, as the Mexica had done. The Aztecs would also link the distant people they conquered through trade. The rulers would build temples and pyramids in places where they held religious festivals. These actions would please the gods and connect the Aztec rulers to those gods in the eyes of their subjects. On the battlefield, the Aztecs first made sure they kept control over the cities the Tampanecs ruled. Especially important were the towns to the south, which had many chanapas that provided food. In 1440, Montezuma I became the first leader of Tenochtitlan. Under his rule, the Triple Alliance spread its control outside the Valley of Mexico. Aztec forces conquered lands to the east, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. In one battle against the Huatecs, the Aztecs surprised their enemy warriors and either killed them or took them prisoner. Then the Aztecs entered the enemy's city and burned the temple, killing the old and young alike. After the battle, the Aztecs marched their prisoners back to Tenochtitlan, where they were sacrificed to the gods. Another successful military venture, Montezuma organized an army of 20,000 men to fight the Mixtecs to the south. 10,000 porters marched with the Aztec warriors. The Aztecs had no pack animals, such as horses or cattle, to carry the food and weapons the soldiers needed. They also did not have wagons. The porters hauled the supplies on their backs, using the wooden frames called caxitli to hold the items. Defeated enemies, such as the Mixtecs, agreed to give tribute to the Aztecs several times during the year. The Aztecs sought luxury goods, such as fine blankets. They also desired food that they could not grow close to Tenochtitlan, such as cacao beans, the source of chocolate. After their defeat, the Mixtecs' tributes included bowls of gold dust. During the first decade of the Triple Alliance, the city of Tenochtitlan remained independent from Tenochtitlan with its own Tlaloc, with its own leader. But in 1473, the two cities that shared an island and cultural roots fought each other. A dispute between their related royal families played a huge part. Tenochtitlan won the battle, and from then on, its leader controlled the entire island. The Aztecs were not always vicious in battle. Around 1478, the leader Axicotl launched a war against the Tarascans, who lived just west of the Aztec-controlled lands. Having built their own powerful state, the Tarascans were a threat to the Aztec interest in the region. Some historical sources say that the Aztecs amassing a fighting force of 20,000 warriors to challenge the Tarascans. Their enemy, however, had an even larger army and defeated the Aztecs. Relations remained tense between these two people. The Aztecs at their height. Despite their loss to the Tarascans, the Aztecs continued to expand their influence. Under their leader, who began his rule in 1486, they gained control of the Valley of Huacas. south of the Valley of Mexico. They also received tribute from peoples who lived along the Pacific Ocean. Their leader conquered towns from the frontier that lay next to the Tarscan's land in order to strengthen the border with his enemy. To ensure the loyalty of these new towns, he killed all the adults and sent the children to live in Aztec cities. Then thousands of Aztecs from Tenochtitlan and other cities moved to the border towns. During his rule, the leader of Tenochtitlan became the supreme leader of the Triple Alliance. Once wandering Mexica were now in charge of the greatest empire in central Mexico. In 1502, Montezuma II, great-grandson of the first Montezuma, took control of the empire. His war strengthened control over many areas that tried to rebel and added lands to the south. Montezuma II also fought the Talacans. These people to the east of Tenochtitlan had never come under Aztec rule, even as the Aztecs surrounded the lands they controlled. Constant fighting, the Talaca leader provided the Aztecs with a steady source of sacrifice victims and stirred deep hatred from the Aztecs in Talaca. Despite his army's strength, however, Montezuma II could not hold off the Talacans. When the Spaniards arrived in 1519, the Talacans became their allies against Montezuma II. Together, Europeans and Mexicans would end Aztec power in the Valley of Mexico. Oh wow, that was a lot to learn today. What did you think, Madam Owl? I found that part really interesting too. We'll see you in the next adventure, okay? And we'll see you in the next adventure, here with Wayne Reads. Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to see you again. Bye-bye!